Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the 2021 Distinguished University Innovator of the Year Award and panel discussion at the University of Michigan. I'm Kelly Sexton, Associate Vice President for Research and Innovation Partnerships. Today is an especially exciting day. Not only do we get to honor one of the university's most influential innovators, but it also happens to be the very same day that we announced the reorganization and rebranding of the Office of Technology Transfer to become Innovation Partnerships at U of M. I'm excited about this announcement. I'm excited about the increased services we're going to be able to provide to U of M faculty. But most of all, I'm very thrilled to be able to share part of the afternoon with all of you as we honor Professor Perry Sampson, the Arthur F. Thurnau Professor of Climate and Space Sciences and Engineering, College of Engineering, and Professor of Information in the School of Information, as our 2021 Distinguished University Innovator of the Year. Today, we're going to be hearing about his innovative work, what inspired it, and what lessons there may be for other faculty interested in translating their research and scholarship to practice. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. First, this webinar is being recorded. As a registered participant, you will be receiving a link to the video after we're done recording. And second, I'd like to remind you that in this webinar, attendees cannot see each other. You can only see the panelists. Next, I would like to introduce the University of Michigan Vice President for Research, Rebecca Cunningham, who will present the 2021 Distinguished University Innovator of the Year Award, after which we will hear from Professor Sampson and then transition into a panel discussion. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kelly, and congratulations to your team on the new rebrand as Innovation Partnerships. I'm confident with the experience and expertise of your team, the University of Michigan will continue to strengthen its global reputation as a leader in research and innovation. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rebecca Cunningham, the Vice President for Research here at Michigan, and it's a pleasure to join you today. I'm especially excited for the opportunity to present this year's Distinguished University Innovator Award to Professor Perry Sampson. Professor Sampson is someone who truly embodies this award, which honors faculty members who've developed transformative ideas, processes, or technologies and shepherded them to market. His list of breakthrough innovations includes initiating the Blue Skies application that allowed K-12 students and later the public to access live weather data with rollover map functionality before the existence of the internet. That led co-founding of the Weather Underground, the first online commercial weather company, which was eventually sold to the Weather Channel and later IBM, and is used by millions of people today. In recognition of his work in developing a series of pioneering learning and weather-related tools and technologies and launching successful companies around them that serve millions of people, I'm pleased to recognize Perry Sampson with this year's Distinguished University Innovator Award. Congratulations.
Thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate that. And I want to thank Kelly as well, and also Dan Manfredi at the Office of Tech Transfer for giving me this opportunity to acknowledge the work that's been going on here at the University of Michigan. I also want to just do a call out to Enrico Landi at my own department, who did all the footwork to nominate me for this award. I appreciate it greatly. Also, others at the Office of Tech Transfer, including Mr. Jim Sturkin, who for years was also a mentor to me. Now, today I'm going to talk a bit about my experience with the Office of Tech Transfer, because I think other faculty should hear that. But I really want to emphasize how students really have made this happen for me. And so I'm going to show a few slides here at this point to just walk through some of the trajectory for how I got here. First of all, the Weather Underground, which was just referred to, was created back in the 1990s. It eventually was sold to the Weather Channel and IBM. Lecture Tools I'll also be talking about. Lecture Tools was created here on campus as a way to engage students in learning. That was eventually acquired by Echo 360. I'm also going to mention I've got another venture that we're just starting that I'd like to talk about called Learning Clues. That's going to be available even this semester here at the university. Going to the Weather Underground, this was started back in the 1990s before there was an internet. This was a room in our building, and students were working on this project. The whole concept here was, how do we deliver weather information? Everything I'm going to show you today, I've done because I needed it for my class. And literally, the Weather Underground was just so I could have weather information for my 9 o'clock class. And Jeff Masters went about making a telnet session so I could get weather information for class. Alan Sternberg showed up, and he was polite enough to take my ideas for how we might make this into a visual representation of the weather. And he turned it into a system called Blue Skies, where Blue Skies was a Gopher client. For you older people, you might remember Gopher clients. This was before HTML and the internet. And this allowed us to reach out to K-12 schools and offer interactive weather information to those schools with interactive weather maps for the first time, before there was really graphics on this fledgling internet that you could roll over and get the current weather in any particular city. This was big news back in that day. These people helped make it happen. And Alan Sternberg in particular, who is with us today here, can describe his trajectory in particular. But this is a team that started this project. I was involved long enough to understand I should be out of the way here and let this group do their work. But Alan and the team, they created the Weather Underground, which you still can use today, and is still extremely popular around the world. Next project we worked on, again, I was trying to use clickers in the class, and I just wasn't happy with what clickers could do. You could ask like multiple choice questions, but I wanted to do more kinds of questions. And so I'm trying to show, and I'm trying to remember all the people who worked on that project here. But this project allowed me to share my slides with the students. And then more than that, I could ask all kinds of questions now with the students, multiple choice, image-based questions, a wide range of questions. And this tool became quite popular to the point that apparently people in Australia were using it as well. And eventually this tool led to the day where the Echo 360 decided that they wanted this as part of their system. And the Echo 360 team identified some of the important people there who've been so supportive over the years, have taken that tool and built it up more. And now it does things like on the right, you can see I can ask questions in class like what conditions make the atmosphere less stable. As a meteorologist, this is the kind of question I might ask in class. And I have large classes, so how do you make these classes more interactive? With this tool, I can certainly do the multiple choice question, and I can see then how many people voted for each one. But also I can see how many 114 voted for answer B. But then if I can click on B, it'll show their justification for choosing B. And now the course, even though it's large, becomes extremely interactive, where I can query them with all kinds of questions and they can give me feedback and I can talk about their feedback. Class becomes more of a dialogue than simply a didactic explosion of me expressing what I know about the weather. These are tools that I've needed for the classroom, and these tools are developed largely through the efforts of students here at the University of Michigan and beyond. And these students often are teaching me, like my job is a great job. I think I have the best job on campus. I get paid to talk about the weather, for goodness sake. But beyond that, I just throw out these half-baked ideas, and people like Jason Aubrey of Lecture Tools fame pick it up and they run with it and make it into something bigger than I ever expected. So our job as innovators on a campus, I would argue, is largely to throw out the challenging questions. Students want to participate in those questions, give them interesting questions to participate in, and then let them run with it and get out of the way. And here is now Echo 360. And Echo 360, one of the many things it does that I'm most excited about in the classroom, it's important for you to hear this, is that certainly I can present questions and students can respond to questions, and I can broadcast my class. I let my students decide whether they want to come to class or participate in person or participate remotely, and it's all still interactive. But the part on the right is a very important part, and that is where we've introduced an anonymous back channel, a simple step, because I'm trying to teach climate science. I want more students from a broader range of backgrounds to be part of my field. And part of the issue here is belongingness. When you come into these large classes, you don't necessarily feel like you belong. But with a tool like this, students can pose questions anonymously on the right side here. And I, or my teaching assistant, can be answering those questions as class is going on. So it's another way for students to participate. I've seen through research that this takes students who are uncomfortable asking verbal questions in class, and they are participating at the same rate as the rest of the class. Students who are first generation, students who are women in my science class, students who from English is not their native language. It allows students more interaction. That wouldn't have happened, but the students came and said, we want this. This is something we would like to see added to this software. And being in this position of being able to build things gave me that opportunity. The last thing I want to talk to you about today, just to give you a flavor of Forrest, I'm not done yet. So here's a team that I'm working with right now, and those names in yellow are a part of my present team. In white are people who have been on the team over the past year or two. The concept is this: we take what's recorded in class, your lecture capture, and from that, of course, there's a transcript that comes out of it. But we also take what was presented in class and we sort of rip the words off the slides, thinking that if you put words on your slides, they're probably important. And both of those go into a database where we know when things were either said or visually presented in class. And that database is powerful stuff, because now with this, we can allow the students to do a search. And I'm going to just gamble here with technology and take you live. This has just gone live in the past week here on our campus, just to illustrate in Canvas, you might have a lecture capture link. In that lecture capture link, you have the list of all the lecture captures that have happened in your course. And on that window, I am going to click this button here, where you can now, you or the students can do a search. And let's see, I'm going to look up Coriolis force, which I've talked about in my class. I think I just spelled it right. Maybe not. Technology, you have to have a sense of humor sometimes to try this live. And I might have spelled it wrong. I can't really see the screen in this room so well, so bear with me. There. And it comes back and says, all right, you, a student, you're looking for a particular topic. It shows you that this is probably, oh, I spelled it wrong. This is probably the best place to go. And if I go click on this, it's going to show you the transcript from that lecture and the video itself. But you can go into moments here now, and it shows you where that term was used. And I can click on any one of those, and it takes you to that spot. So what it's doing is indexing everything going on in the classroom and allowing first students to be able to search for information as they're preparing for an exam. More than that, the next thing here is that the student can choose some period of days, and it'll accumulate then what were the important terms used over that period of days and produce for the student basically a study guide automatically generated on the important terms that are being used in the course. We think this is going to have, this is our next innovation here that would help our students prepare for exams, particularly those students who maybe don't have the background on how to study for an exam. They're new to the university. Maybe they haven't come from a school that has provided the kind of support one would hope for. This, we think, is going to offer the students a new way to do their study. That was a quick overview of the things that I'm been working on, I've been working on, let me figure out how to go back to the slides here now, if I can. Thank you. I think I should get an award, another award, just for organizing this group of people to come and talk with us today. I am so pleased. They said, here's the award, and now you have to go out and create a panel. And I was able to talk these 7 people into coming and being part of this panel. And they're, as with my adventures in technology, I just throw out half-baked ideas. So now I've assembled this group to which we will be throwing out half-baked questions, and they are then on the hot seat to come up with some interesting answers. And I'd like to introduce them one at a time, and I'm asking that they allow their cameras to turn on at this point. And I'm not sure Thomas has joined us yet. Thomas, are you here?
I am here, if you can hear me.
I can hear you, Thomas. Thank you.
Right.
You want to just introduce yourself in a sentence?
Yeah, I'm the head of science at NASA. So of course I was at Michigan for 20 plus years, and during that time had the pleasure of working with Perry as well as others.
Thomas is a great resource and was a great resource when he was here at the University of Michigan. James, are you there?
I am.
And a sentence about yourself, please.
Sure. Sorry. Yeah. So I'm the Vice Provost for Academic Innovation and the Dean of the Libraries, and have been on the faculty in various roles for a long, long time at Michigan.
And I've also invited Tony Abadi.
Hey, Perry, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Want to introduce yourself?
Yep, founder and COO of Echo 360, been with the company for 15 years and was instrumental in working with the tech office at Michigan and you, Perry, to effectively get lecture tools as a key part of Echo 360. So psyched to be here.
And my partner, Radha, who is part of our current project.
Hello, and congratulations, Perry, for this well-deserved award. I'm Radha Mihalcha. I'm a professor of computer science and also the director of the Artificial Intelligence Lab here at Michigan.
Thank you, Radha. Alan.
Hello, I'm Alan Sternberg, and I was a computer engineering undergrad who was looking for a summer job, and thankfully Perry hired me all those years ago, and we started Weather Underground along with Jeff Masters, Jeff Ferguson, Chris Schwarzler, and a few other people.
Alan, I just found also the letter that you originally sent to me asking for the job.
That's frightening.
It was fun to find. Another one, Jason Aubrey, who's been was extremely important with lecture tools.
Hey, Perry, I just made it. Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Aubrey. I was part of the original team of Lecture Tools. So similar to you, Alan, but Lecture Tools didn't become as big as the Weather Underground, but I'm currently now the CEO of MedCerts. It's an online career training school focused on healthcare and IT and staffing.
And lastly, Thomas, who represents the current group working on learning clues.
Yeah, I just want to say once again, really quick, congratulations, Dr. Sampson. So I did my undergraduate here at University of Michigan, studied computer science and linguistics, started working on the Learning Clues project with Dr. Sampson. And the project was one of the motivating factors for me to come back to the University of Michigan for my graduate degree in information science.
Thank you, Thomas. Can we kill the slides now? Done. It's done. All right. Before we get going, they said, come up with a few words when you start this, and I'm thinking, gosh, I don't really know how to put this together, how to word this. It's not like it's not doing an acceptance speech for an Emmy. And then somebody shot back, so well, maybe it is. I would like to invite Sean Patrick in here. See, I also take students in the summertime, and we went to Greenland a couple of years ago, and I just want to take a moment. Thank Sean, who works here for the Center for Academic Innovation, who won this award. They won an Emmy. So how many other winners can claim that? you mind if I just leave it up here for a minute?
Absolutely.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, buddy. Congratulations.
Thanks, Sean. All right, isn't that fun? All right, time for some questions. And I've gotten a bunch of questions submitted. Some of them, I'll answer privately because I can't tell that joke. But a lot of questions have to do with simply innovation and how does one create innovation on this campus, particularly in my area is going to be academic. We're thinking about how do we create innovations, how do we scale innovations? And to do that, sometimes you have to consider commercialization. And that's the path I've chosen. There are other ways to do that. And so a lot of the questions have to do with, how do you start? How do you make this happen? And I'd like to start with Alan. I'm going to put you on the spot, Alan, to just talk about the trajectory of your life. You started at Michigan. You then went to Stanford to get your master's degree. You were working with some other students there. How about your trajectory, and how important was this opportunity to get involved in commercialization part of your academic trajectory?
That's a great question. I graduated from University of Michigan and thought I was never gonna do anything weather related again, which of course was famous last words, and went on to a startup that was kind of a metaverse 3D startup that failed pretty dramatically. But before it did, I luckily got into grad school. And when I was there were a lot of companies being started. And both at Michigan, I had a great class in the engineering school on entrepreneurship. And then I took another one with a Michigan grad, Fred Brooks, at Stanford. And both of those classes helped a lot and sort of reconnected over email with the team, with Chris Schwarzler and I just started, talking about starting and doing something. And we, Chris flew out to California because we got this crazy contract with a South Korean company. And we flew out, I think in 1997 to South Korea and met with the Korean Weather Service. And it was a pretty crazy time, but just, getting started. And I don't know, for me, I really didn't want to get a real job after the first failed startup. And so we just sort of, Jeff Ferguson and I both worked on getting revenue for the company. He sold some ads, I sold some weather to TV stations. And before we knew it, we had just enough money to be dangerous, not enough to buy a house or anything, but just enough to not get real jobs. That's sort of the path of Weather Underground. And after doing it for, I think, 19 years, I was at Weather Underground. It got pretty big, which was cool.
It was very cool. I'm so proud of that. Everybody asked me, well, what was the most exciting innovation that you worked on? And it's like having children. I can't claim one over another, but that was amazing, unexpected, I'd say, at least in my world. Jason, you also went through Lecture Tools with me, and now you're on and a CEO of MedCert. So how did and your family, as I recall, is involved in entrepreneurship. So did that affect your trajectory?
Yeah, absolutely. I think conversations at my dinner table, at least growing up, were largely surrounded by business. And I'll never forget going to the University of Michigan. I really put a focus on entrepreneurship and trying to find something, some business to start or a startup idea. And I think it was right around that time where Empowered, a student organization that was trying to foster entrepreneurship, was really getting, really making headway on campus. And as well as the University or the Engineering College, they sponsored the Tech Arb, right, a student startup incubator program. Perry, we met because I was one of the students that was selected to go to Silicon Valley for pitch day. And we sat next to each other at dinner, and I had a startup idea, which was basically what you were already working on. And I'll never forget the opportunity and kind of the leap of faith that you put forth, right? I was 19 years old at the time. And looking back, as I'm 33 now, man, did I not know much at the time. But you kind of gave the opportunity and had some faith there. And I think combined with, my upbringing as well as the opportunity, but also what the university was doing at the time in terms of just fostering entrepreneurship, trying to make it as easy as possible to make it accessible but to support students, it went a really long way. And I still take with me a lot of lessons learned in terms of writing business plans to the National Science Foundation, obtaining funding, to working with human computer interaction design majors on developing technology that has a seamless experience, and just learning how to scale and commercialize a business and technology.
You are a success story, Jason. Appreciate that. Thomas, you are now in the throes. You're just a new graduate student. What drives you to think about getting involved in such entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it's mostly the environment that I'm in. I originally started on this project. I was actually in Radha's class, and she sent out an email about potentially doing some summer work. And so I applied because I didn't want to work at Starbucks over the summer. And so, slowly I thought maybe this would just be a little summer, coding experience. And it was crazy to see, one, not only how passionate you are, Dr. Sampson, about what you do, but, to see how quickly it was growing and how much of an impact it could have on students and like for the university as a whole. So I think, being around all these different people at the university who are so passionate about innovation and entrepreneurship, that's really changed my focus into looking more towards, working on the side of entrepreneurship, maybe coming back and getting a business degree at some point to do my own startup. So honestly, for that reason, I'm very thankful to have met you.
Thank you, Thomas. And let's go to Thomas, the other Thomas. Now you've been on campus here. In fact, you were leading issues of entrepreneurship on campus for a bit. What's the role? I mean, you saw the energy on this campus from students to want to get involved in entrepreneurship. What do you think limits us on campus from becoming more involved in it?
Well, look, I'm just so great to see Jason again. I looked at this face, it's like, I know this guy, because I was on the same trip. In fact, I helped organize it, and Alan was on the other side doing some of the kind of activities there. Look, I think if you look at the spectrum of all professors that are at the University of Michigan, they're amazing people, and many of them have different goals, and we just have to recognize that not everybody's going to be the same. And then there's the people who are just, I call it kind of in that distribution, the +2 sigma or +3 sigma people. And clearly you're in that group, right? And that tail of the distribution, people who kind of are not happy with the status quo. I'll define myself that way, right? I can't, you're always a happy guy, but, kind of seeing opportunity that is elsewhere. And so there's really two questions you can solve, right? Kind of, if you want more of that, like how do you do that? Of course, how you hire. I mean, I was really excited, Radha, to see you on here, because I remember when you were considering coming to Michigan, I was trying to convince you how important, I don't know whether it had anything to do with this, but you and I chatted before you came, how important we think that kind of innovation really is. So we hire the right way. And then the other piece is to scale the right way, right? Kind of per one professor, you're telling us the story of multiple companies. Scaling that kind of influence is really critical. And for me, that's all about the students. I mean, I just really want to, to me, the path to a kind of an entrepreneurial ecosystem that really kind of bursts from in all directions is how much we manage to get the students involved. And I really believe, for what it's worth, like Perry, you've just done a wonderful job with this. I'm great to see the other Thomas here. I don't think we've met, perhaps at Starbucks, I don't know, but before he met Perry. But look, I believe the magic ingredient in the innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystem on a campus is students empowered by professors like you and others who are doing that. So for me, I just I mean, I cannot overstress that. That's what, of course, motivated me when we built the Center for Entrepreneurship, the innovation activities across campus, because I just think these life-changing experiences are just great. I mean, I want to tell you, Perry, I bump into the students that were there, just like Jason here, as well as others. I bump into them pretty much every week. You cannot believe the entrepreneurial value they created, just kind of in the billions and billions. Some of them by themselves have created these kind of companies. Some of them have joined companies, and I just couldn't be more proud of them. And again, so often it's people like you who have really empowered them and moved them forward. So those are the two things: hire and then empower.
That's great, Thomas. Thank you. Thank you so much. And of course, I'm not by any means the only person on campus who's involved in innovation in educational technology. James, you lead a whole division dealing with academic innovation, and I'm blessed with using your facilities here at the moment. So, and many of these projects under your umbrella also are thinking about how to scale. Commercialization is one method for doing scaling. There are other ways, obviously, to do that depending upon the technology. So what do you envision, what role could the Center for Academic Innovation play in the commercialization of education technologies?
I want to answer that question and then answer a slightly different question that focuses on a different part of your career. And I also want to say congratulations, Perry. It's really greatly deserved. Center for Academic Innovation was, which is run by James Devaney, led by James Devaney. It was created to help people experiment and innovate really around education curricular. You know, higher education is undergoing dramatic change. It's been accelerated by the pandemic, but that change was in midstream before the pandemic, driven in large part by a bunch of forces, of which technology is a non-trivial one, as your work over your career demonstrates. So we work with other offices on campus to try to help them, but commercialization isn't our forte. It's trying the experiments, trying to figure out how to scale them on campus. And then as they scale on campus, how do you then start to look for partnerships to move them on, which again, at your individual level, that's the way you did it. We're trying to replicate you, Perry, in a lot of ways as an organization. You know, and I think that it's really critical that higher education and the University of Michigan in particular do that. You know, we're living through an explosion of innovation and entrepreneurship as we find our way towards a blended future where learning and life merge and education is embraced as a lifelong and global endeavor. And we have, again, as the tools you've created demonstrate over and over again, we have this opportunity to leverage networks and interactive digital technology and data to build tools that help activate, personalize, and scale education, a focus more on learning outcomes than on process, right? I mean, in shorthand, we have the opportunity to dump the industrial model of education and move towards this, what I like to think of as more enlightened, more personalized, more agile way of thinking about it that's more inclusive.
Thank you, James. I'm going to stop for a second and tell a story before I ask Tony to comment, because back in 2012, Alan Sternberg called me and out of the blue said, well, we had just sold the Weather Underground to the Weather Channel. And, you know, I went home and Deborah and I celebrated that happy day. And then literally a couple of weeks later, I was still not at this point, I was trying to get lecture tools to success. And Tony Abadi and Bill Holding showed up in my office here in Ann Arbor and told us that they were expressing an interest in buying lecture tools. And I seriously thought that these guys were put up by some of my friends just because, you know, whether Underground had sold, and they were just there to pull my leg a bit. I told them to go to hell. But Tony was preserved enough that persevered enough to come back and talk me down, and I've been pleased since then, because Tony brings a team with him from Echo 360 that has taught me a great deal about what is possible in when you think larger than yourself. So Tony, please talk for a moment about the role that you saw in interacting with, like, the Office of Tech Transfer, the role of interacting with an academic institution when you're trying to take and commercialize a product.
Yeah, so first, Perry, congratulations on a well-deserved award. Can't think of someone more deserving of it. So first of all, a little history for Echo, and it'll dovetail very nicely to the question you're asking, Perry. Echo 360 started with actually a tech transfer out of the University of Western Australia. So our thesis was there was a lot of interesting things we could do to innovate around teaching and learning as far back as 2008, 2009. And we always thought that the best place to go find the tools that were working were at universities experimenting with this very thing. So effectively, we bought Lectopia, which was a lecture capture solution at the time. So we had dealt with technology licensing experiences previously. They didn't have as sophisticated a one at the time as Michigan did when we were coming to talk to you about lecture tools. Also, in my prior life, I was a venture capitalist up in the Boston area, and we did a lot of this with MIT and other schools up here that were very facile at taking really cool research-related products and getting them in the hands of people who can commercialize them. And that's kind of where my skill set is. You're the innovator, I am not, but I can take something and see an opportunity with the help of a team and figure out how to make it bigger. So when we were dealing directly with you and Michigan, I do recall you getting a note from your wife that the suits were showing up at your office, and I guess I was wearing a blazer when I showed up on campus, so you had been forewarned that we were coming. But again, the dialogue between the three parties, Echo 360, the licensing office or the technology office at Michigan, and yourself, was fairly typical, right? You want a solution that goes beyond Michigan. Michigan wants to make sure they can still use the technology as it enhances over time at a fair price, and obviously get a little bit of equity in the deal. And of course, you would like to see your particular innovation be used by more and more students. And that particular relationship has been fairly strategic, both us to Michigan and us to you, since that date, right? It wasn't a fire and forget kind of relationship. We didn't buy it and walk away. We continue to work with you on your research, and the university with the experience with Echo 360 in particular, as it expands its capabilities since the time that you were thinking of selling lecture tools to us. So process very smooth. Obviously, you're dealing with three parties, not two, so you have to take that into consideration, and you're dealing with a university, not a commercial entity that has very much narrow commercial interests. Obviously, Michigan has many more interests beyond the commercial ones.
And what Tony just said, I think I want to double down on, it's an important point there, is that often when you have an innovation and then you hand it off to another group, it's like handing your baby away. And invariably, they're going to change it for their own use. And sometimes it's hard for faculty to imagine doing that. But at least with Echo 360, they were kind enough or misguided enough to have me stay involved in their process so that I could sort of at least be standing at the door and screaming about, well, wait, there's a pedagogical issue here. And that's not common, but it's one thing you can aim for if you have an innovation and you're gonna let it go. It's value to both sides. I hope that that you continue a relationship with that group. Now, not everybody on campus, not all faculty are going to be excited about using and going to doing entrepreneurial things. Understandably, we on campus are judged by our scholarship, and we are plenty busy with teaching and research. So Radha, I want you have been involved in creating things over your lifetime that are commercializable, let's say. And I invited you to become part of the lecture learning clues team. And you have been participating with us in thinking about, how do we use natural language processing to figure out what was actually important in lecture or in classes. So from your experience, the pros and cons of getting involved in entrepreneurship.
I think this is an excellent question, because sometimes it's almost perceived as a gap or a place. It's sometimes hard to bridge the core research enterprise we have as academics and the more industrial entrepreneurial goals that companies sometimes have. And I really very much agree with what Thomas Brucken said about what is really the key to success is finding the right people and empowering them. And I think the entrepreneurial aspects can play this role of empowering researchers. And I'm really going after, as a major value that I see, is really connecting research to real life. Like, there is a lot of value in going after basic research education, and that's really sort of our main mission as academics. But there is also a lot of value in connecting the research that we do to real life, and that's what entrepreneurship brings in. And I'm thinking specifically about the problems that we address. Sometimes we make up problems in the research that we do, and entrepreneurship brings real life problems. So actually solving a problem that there is need for. Data also, I think, is an important aspect. Sometimes we have toy data sets or in-lab data sets, which are fine for the purpose of, again, going after these fundamental research questions. But when it comes to applying in real life, sometimes they don't really apply well, transfer well. And so that's another big value that comes from these close connections to real life, because data can in reality be super messy, super large, heterogeneous, everything that you don't want in a data set. That's what you find out there. So that's it's very useful. Of course, the training opportunities, and those were highlighted, like really empowering students to go after this, making an impact in the society out there through these companies that would participate in and innovations. And it's also, I believe, a way to get a better understanding of who's actually impacted by technology. Again, we do studies, we think about users, but in a more real life setting, you actually see who's impacting. Like in the case of learning clues, you're getting feedback from students who are the actual users, and you get a much closer interactions with the users. Now, you also ask about what are some of the challenges. I'd say every single thing that I mentioned is both an opportunity and a challenge, like how you work with real data, how you actually learn about the real users, how you provide the training in these settings. So those are all challenges. And another challenge that I see is there is some kind of a gap between mindsets, like the mindset of a sort of pure academic versus what I see the mindset of somebody who's more entrepreneurial, with respect to what they value. I mean, is it really like, if I solve a problem, is that enough, or should I also implement it? So that's a different in terms of how people look at what is really important to them. And then there is also the framework, right? So it's the kind of resources we have. In academia, we go after grants. In the entrepreneurial space, there is VC funding and other kind of funding. So that's the difference. And also the reward structure. Like, I'm happy, my students are happy when we get the paper published. Maybe for somebody in a startup, they couldn't care less. They would care if their system is used or other things. So the rewards system is also different. So somehow bridging that gap I see it as a challenge in putting those together.
Thank you, Radha. many questions have been submitted before this session began. There seems to be a theme in them, and it has to do, it's kind of like, I'll boil it down to this. What were you thinking? You know, why, as Rada was just talking about, why would one want to go out and go the route of commercialization? Now, the knee-jerk answer is going to be because you have this chance to get rich. I doubt that drives anybody, really. And you're driven to do this for reasons that have to do with more, at least, than money. And so I'm going to start with Jason and having what drives you? I mean, just give me a short answer. What are the things that made you want to be an entrepreneur? Did we lose Jason? I know he was going to be in a car.
You
for
are
a while.
muted, Jason.
I'm sorry. I'd honestly say mission and purpose really drive me to become an entrepreneur. I think, you know, for me, I was a great student up until I got to college. And I was thrown in these large lecture halls, and I started to use lecture tools, and it had a positive impact on me. And so much that I think just naturally I wanted to grow this everywhere, or help grow this as many places as I could. And now, you know, I run an organization that helps individuals step into new careers in healthcare, and actually helps at a macro level lower the nation's student loan debt, right? We're helping students who might not be college bound obtain a certification and step into a career. Just 2 days ago, I received a testimonial from a student who is a 34-year-old single mother who said she just got a job as a medical assistant as a result of, you know, being trained at MedCerts, and it's the first time in her life that she has health insurance. And she's like, I feel like, you know, my two kids can look up to me and be a little bit more proud about me than before. And really, to be honest, that, you know, that really gets me going every morning. It's like, wow, look at the impact that I am having. And frankly, Perry, I am not going to lie. I do like growing businesses. I like building teams, and I do like making money. I'm not going to lie, but it's an equal, you know, in terms of attribution. There's nothing I ever do in life that doesn't have a purpose or a mission that makes me feel good and makes a positive impact on others.
Beautiful, Jason. Thank you for that. Tony, you've been doing this for, you said, 15-ish years. What got you into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I spent a big chunk of my middle career. I'm an engineer by training from a different university. Sorry, I didn't go to the right one.
Doesn't end in the state, right?
No, it does not. You're safe there, Perry. But anyway, I spent a lot of time as a venture capitalist watching people like yourselves do great things, and then got the itch to effectively go to the other side, go to the white side, not the dark side, and actually be a part of the implementation team going forward. And for me, I was ex-military. I grew up in the military, so I'm kind of mission driven. It's a bit what Jason said. There's got to be some meaning to the project, right? I don't want to just sell sugar water to the masses. And what I love, the big places that we need the most help in, at least in the United States, healthcare and education, right? Healthcare is a massive part of our GDP. Education, as I think, critical for the long-term growth of our economy and the economy of the world, quite frankly, and you get that through innovation. So I just wound up stumbling through a course of friendships. Fred Singer, who you know, was eyeing the same transition from VC into an entrepreneurial situation. And we, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, found the opportunity to go effectively buy Lactopia from University of Western Australia and start something that we could take globally. They were successful in what they were doing in a small number of schools, much the way you were successful at what you were doing in a small number of schools in the United States. And what we were trying to do was take that and take it globally, which we have over the past 14 years. But again, for me, you got to really change the world. You got to do something for the better. And the fact that we've got over 2 million students using the solution daily when schools are in session, pre-COVID, during COVID, obviously post-COVID, is really meaningful to me. And then back to the team aspect, it's also great to build a high-powered team that really enjoys what they do. They work harder or work hard as a result of it. And they likewise are driven by the same mission, which is to help others learn.
And you said something that strikes me. Again, I created my tool, lecture tools, here at Michigan, and it was getting some traction. but working with you now, it's like 2 million people are using this tool worldwide, and the capacity to scale is beyond what I would have done or could have done here just at the university alone. Alan, likewise for you, you clearly had entrepreneurial blood. So what drove you other than money?
Similar to Jason, I think my family always was pushing for my brother and I to start our own businesses and do our own thing. And how that translated for me was in starting Weather Underground with you. I think it was, I guess what I learned from you early on was just that, I already knew that I loved working with computers, but computers mixed with something else is really interesting to me. And weather was one of those things that, just made it so much more interesting. And when I went off and did that startup or worked on other projects, I couldn't really explain what I was doing to my grandmother or to other people. But whenever I did weather things, it was just easy to talk about and interesting to everyone, and everyone talks about the weather. And I think, as other people said, being able to scale something and get to a lot of people was really great. And with Weather Underground, it wasn't always that way. I'd say there were other companies internet companies that obviously have grown bigger. We got to around 20 million people visiting the site every month, which was definitely an accomplishment. But it definitely is, we hit on something that people definitely use every day, need to check the weather every day. And I think that was a really good combination.
And that is the key, isn't it? Is not only coming up with a good idea, but you can't be too far ahead of the curve, and you can't be a fast follower either. Both of those tend to fail. It's somehow finding that sweet spot where you're just riding the crest of something new seems to be the key in this area. Now, I don't want to leave. We only have about 5 minutes left. I want to just take a second here, and I'll start with maybe James or Thomas Zerbuchen. Do you have questions or you would like to ask this group? Part of my hope here is that you would get to meet each other, and I've not offered much chance for that. Any thoughts, James, on what you might ask this group?
Well, since most of you are from the commercial side, I'm curious what you think and you've talked a lot about what worked well for you all. What do you see as barriers?
I'll start. Wait, I've got a list.
Wait, you have barriers that you want to identify, Perry? I'm shocked.
Well, the barriers, especially, and James, you probably know as well as anyone, that you can come up with the application which is going to cause your students to all suddenly learn everything immediately and attract students who otherwise wouldn't come into the field, and we still wouldn't get our colleagues to use it. So I would say the biggest barrier I've ever had in trying to promote new technologies are my colleagues. that students will try virtually anything because they seem to have a sense of humor and a willingness to try stuff. Faculty, well, we're kind of set, and I'm like this, I'm set in my ways. I teach a certain way. I'm comfortable doing that, and trying to change when I have all these other responsibilities and tasks is a problem. So thinking about how do we, if we do identify technologies, as you're doing in the Center for Academic Innovation, we do identify new technologies. How do you promote them? How do we grow these ideas on our own campus and use our campus as a test bed for these ideas, that hopes that they would move on off campus? Those are not questions I expect an answer from right now, but those are the challenges I see is just motivation. Thomas, did you have questions you wanted to ask?
Yeah, let me just make a statement first, right? It's kind of funny. I've been trying very hard to figure out why haven't I done this? And it kind of, it's really funny. It's like, I'll tell you a story, Perry. I don't think I ever told you. And that is, when I was done with, kind of my activities around the Center for Entrepreneurship, I thought I'm going to start a company. My wife thought I'm going to start a company. And frankly, what bothered me, I'm not good without walls. I'm a wall climber. I like I just how I grew up. There's probably some psychologists who can really understand what's wrong with me. But my innovative spirit gets kicked into gear where I see a problem, right? Kind of, and a problem kind of, so I guess I'm an entrepreneur by like that's a word that some people use, right? I'm really all about changing organizations. Kind of, I can swim in molasses and not get frustrated. I can, walk up mountains with rocks on my back, and still get there, right? So for me, that's kind of what that's why I'm at NASA, right? It's not because, I didn't go to NASA because, I went to NASA because I thought we really needed to get better, right? Especially how we interacted with commercial companies. And that I felt that was multilingual. That's what I could do. I think for me, the question I really have, is kind of, so there's so many different professors, like, are we doing what we can to really kind of get people in the choir? Are there positive motivations to do that, and also enablement, or is it kind of, does it still feel like a fight all by yourself out there against the elements? That's what I'm really, that's certainly how I felt it was, when I started the entrepreneurship ecosystem, kind of the Center for Entrepreneurship and issues around them. Many of the professors told me, never use my name together with entrepreneurship because we'd want them to get shot at. But, has that really changed? Perry and colleagues, Rada probably has a really good answer to that too.
Well, Rada, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you are on the executive board for the College of Engineering. To what degree is entrepreneurship looked at in promotion and tenure?
Well, it is considered, I cannot really speak for the executive committee of the college, first because I just started. And I have more experience within the computer science department. So it's broadly looked at positively. So that will be sort of the short answer there. But I think which is sort of another angle that I've been hearing from Thomas, it's like, who is really doing this? Are there different personalities or different people who are motivated to do this? And that's sort of another part. Maybe that's what I wanted to hear. I think it's really up to us to motivate the right people to go after that, because not everyone might be excited at first. And just looking at this panel here, right? So I'm the only woman. And in general, looking at entrepreneurship and motivating, not necessarily creating these stereotypical views, like what is your stereotypical CEO of a company? I guess there isn't really. So creating a diverse set of role models and what it means. If you only work with words around us, so be it. Probably there is a perfect place for you, like NASA or others. So it's just being very open about that, as opposed to having this restricted set of role models and what it means to be in entrepreneurship.
Good points, Rada. Very good points. And I've only got a minute left, so I'm going to now throw it at the youngest member of the team here. Thomas, you can see the rest of the people. You've heard the stories. What question, if any, do you have for this group?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, interestingly, I would like to know what you guys thought you would do in life, like either at the start of college, or because I know personally, I really changed directions just going through college. So did you guys have any early aspirations that have now changed?
That's a great question. I'm not sure, don't have to look now for the leadership to see if we have time to continue this, or we have.
Perry, we're almost at time. So maybe I'll answer, Thomas, and assume that was directed for me. I've always wanted this job so that I could be here today to honor Perry Sampson and to celebrate him as the Distinguished University Innovator of the Year. with an Emmy. Perry, you make me want to go back to college again so I can take one of your classes. And I do think you deserve an additional award for pulling together such an amazing panel. Panelists, thank you all so much for spending your time with us today for this amazing conversation. Radha, we should connect offline. I love your comments about diversity and leadership and entrepreneurship. But thank you, Radha, James, Thomas Zerbukin, and Thomas Horak, Alan, Tony, and Jason for joining us today to honor Perry. What a testament to the admiration and respect they hold you in, Perry, and to everyone, all the participants who are in the process of signing off because it's now 5. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us and for helping us celebrate and honor Perry. Congrats again, Perry.
Thank you so much. Thank you.